Why, the longer a man is single, the more dangerous he becomes. At first, it feels like freedom. There's a kind of sacred silence that surrounds a man who walks alone. Not the silence of loneliness, but the quiet that comes when he no longer explains himself, no longer apologizes for the weight of his voice or the depth of his thoughts. It begins gently. He skips a few parties, turns down the occasional date. He says no more often. At first, nobody notices. He still answers messages. He still smiles in photos. But slowly, subtly, he vanishes. Not out of bitterness, but out of clarity. He's no longer trying to fit. He's learning to be. And the world doesn't quite know what to make of him, because a man who's been single long enough begins to change. Not in the ways you might think. He doesn't just become bitter or closed off. Those are cliches. The truth is more unnerving than that. He becomes self-contained, sharp, aware, patient. He begins to see through illusions, including the biggest one of all, that a man needs someone beside him to be complete. That's the part that frightens people. Society often measures a man's value by who chooses him, his partner, his status, his validation. But the longer a man remains single, truly single, not in pursuit, not in waiting, not in some pause before the next chapter, but deep in solitude, the more he rewrites the rules of his own value. He stops being accessible, stops being predictable. He starts being dangerous, not because he harms, but because he no longer conforms. You see it in his eyes, the stillness, the absence of need, the presence of choice. In the beginning, he may feel adrift. The silence can be deafening for a man who has been taught his worth lies in being wanted. There's a period of doubt. Should I go back? Should I settle? Should I fill the space with someone, anyone? But if he waits, if he learns to listen to the voice beneath the noise, something extraordinary begins to emerge. Discipline. Not the kind shaped by fear or shame, but the kind forged in deliberate solitude. He learns how to train his body not because someone told him to, but because he chooses strength over softness. He wakes up early not to impress, but to own his day. He reads, not to look intelligent, but to feed a hunger that never needed to be seen. He learns the quiet rituals that make him whole, walking at dawn, meditating under moonlight, creating without applause. He reclaims his time, his energy, his identity, and something shifts. He no longer rushes toward intimacy. He studies it. He questions it. He wonders why so many chase it out of panic, not presence. He watches others trade loneliness for chaos, silence for noise, just to feel less alone. And he realizes how rare it is. Someone who can sit with themselves without crumbling. This is the danger. Not that he's alone, but that he's mastered aloneness. The longer he stays single, the harder it becomes to manipulate him. Compliments don't sway him. Criticism doesn't shake him. He's already faced the silence of nights without anyone checking in. He's already stood before the mirror and made peace with what stared back. What power does the world have over a man who's been his own shelter? He doesn't beg to be understood. He doesn't fear rejection. He's lived through both. He becomes immune to games. If someone wants to leave, he lets them go. Not out of coldness, but clarity. He knows connection that's forced will rot. He no longer fights to keep what wants to flee. There's too much peace inside him now to trade it for temporary warmth, and this unsettles people. They call him distant, guarded, maybe even arrogant. But they don't understand. He's not closed, he's focused. He's not angry, he's selective. He's not avoiding love, he's protecting something rare, his wholeness. Because for a man who's been single long enough, solitude is no longer a condition. It's a sanctuary. He doesn't rush into relationships. He questions why he should. What can someone offer that he hasn't already given himself? Can they match his silence with presence? Can they understand his stillness without needing to fix it? Can they sit beside him without needing to be the center of his world? This level of solitude creates a new kind of intimacy, a standard most cannot meet. He no longer dates for sport. He doesn't perform. He doesn't chase. He doesn't entertain half-hearted affection or masked control. He's not interested in being someone's escape or project. He's done being a placeholder in someone else's insecurity. He wants depth, truth, someone who's done the inner work, someone who doesn't need him, but chooses him. There's a difference. And the longer he waits, the clearer that difference becomes. He's not waiting for perfection. He knows flaws are inevitable, but he refuses to settle for chaos disguised as passion. He's tasted peace. He's not giving it up for drama. He'd rather be alone with his books and thoughts and long walks than in a relationship that robs him of his center. He becomes dangerous because he doesn't fear his own company, and the world isn't built for men like that. We're taught to need, to seek, to validate ourselves through others. A man who doesn't play by those rules disrupts the pattern. He reminds others of what they've avoided, that the journey inward is the most terrifying, most liberating path of all. He becomes a mirror. To those rushing from one partner to the next, he is a question. What are you running from? To those who manipulate through affection, he is a wall. Your tricks don't work here. To those who shame solitude, he is a rebuttal. I've built a kingdom alone. He walks through the world untouched by desperation, rooted, calm, powerful, not because he thinks he is better, but because he knows who he is when no one is looking. And maybe he falls in love one day. Maybe someone sees him, not as a prize but as a partner, someone who matches his depth with their own, who doesn't need fixing or saving, who's lived their own solitude and emerged whole. In that case, the union will not be about completing one another. It will be about expansion, growth. Two complete souls choosing to walk side by side, not leaning on each other but lifting each other higher. But if that never happens, he will still be full, not empty, not broken, full. And that fullness, that refusal to live half-lived, that unapologetic embrace of wholeness, is the most dangerous thing of all. Because a man who thrives in solitude is free, and a free man cannot be controlled. He cannot be bought. He cannot be coerced into lives that insult his spirit. He's walked through the shadows of his own mind. He's faced the silence that breaks others. And he came out the other side, not just alive, but awake. So beware the man who's been single too long, not because he's bitter, but because he's powerful. He's found something that can't be given to him, something that cannot be taken away, something many spend their lives searching for in others but never think to look for within. He's found himself, and he's not afraid to be alone with that truth. And that, perhaps more than anything else, makes him dangerous.